If you tuned in yesterday to the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup, you saw a pretty boring game between Chelsea and PSG, the Champions League champions. But what you also saw was a telling spectacle on the state of the United States. Not the fact that Trump was there with his wife and made a fool of himself afterwards when he refused to get off of stage. But this picture, if you see it, you see those ankles? That's not normal. That's not something that anybody should strive to achieve, because what that's saying is that he has what we call in modern day parlance cankle morphology. Essentially, it's a signal that he's obese and that he's got significantly large amounts of adipose-based tissue and inflammation and other substances in his body, which causes lymphedema. He's retaining water, which is common in older sedentary folk, but it does a very big risk of cardiovascular strain and metabolic dysfunction. This is because there's a lack of muscular definition due to disuse, poor gait mechanics, and systematic inflation. Sure, he goes out and golfs, but golf by itself is not the type of cardiovascular activity that somebody should necessarily engage in to lead a very healthy lifestyle. And thus we get this 78-year-old man who lies about his weight, who says he's reported at 6'3", 215. If that was the case, he'd be Lamar Jackson, because that's ultimately what Lamar Jackson is his playing weight at. This is no Lamar Jackson. This is a very obese human being, and in actuality, a very good symbol for what the United States has become. The United States has become one nation under fat, a nation that is addicted to fast food, alcohol, weed, Netflix, addicted to all kinds of other things except honoring the body. And as we go through summer here and we have all resigned ourselves to either achieve our beach bodies or not, we need to come to the reality check that the United States is a nation of really fat, obese people. We are a nation that has been sickened by design to sell us more fast food, to sell us more weight loss drugs, to sell us all kinds of other things that end up being the collateral damage of narcissism, the collateral damage of not really honoring oneself to our president's display. That is an issue that is a big problem, because from a healthcare perspective, we are getting sicker. And as we continue to make healthcare more expensive, we're going to start seeing a lot more negative outcomes from people who don't honor their bodies. I'm not a picture of health myself. I definitely am not shredded. I'm not the type of guy that's going to go out there and has a six-pack abs. Very much a dad bod. But I am amongst the few Americans that put in 7 days a week of exercise, 60 minutes, 7 days a week of targeted exercise and movement. That is something that has become increasingly rare in the United States, and something that has become a meme from people who would rather engage in body positivity by staying home and watching Netflix while stuffing more and more processed food in their mouth. And I'm not here to fat shame anybody. What I'm here to do is to outline how modern day fitness has become either a grift or completely out of reach for people, because it's focused primarily on the negatives of gym culture, the steroid use, and all those things that are essentially killing us from that other perspective. What I'm here to do is to present to you how Precision Cycle is not only a psychological method to recalibrate yourself, but also find the inner discipline that someone needs to reach full sovereignty. What you're doing when you go to the gym is creating self-sovereignty, because you will never be dependent on some doctor and what they're going to prescribe to manage your high blood pressure. Going to the gym is not going to get you addicted to fast food that is slowly killing us with all kinds of processed junk that shouldn't be in people's bodies. And it's definitely not going to get us to a point where we think that taking GLP-1s like Ozempic are the magic cure to weight loss. Because here's the thing, there's no magic bullet, there's no magic pill, there's no magic shot. The only thing that will get you results is actually getting in the gym and moving. And on today's Precision Cycle, we're here to talk about One Nation Under Fat, the rise of obesity, and how it's become generally acceptable to not really care about your body. When you end up having to use your Medicare to get treatments for your overweight status, who do you think is going to pay for that? That's right, American taxpayers are. One nation under God here, one narcissism nation, where we wear it essentially on our bodies. Because you can't fake the numbers, you can't fake your body results. At the end of the day, the only thing that really speaks is your body. Your body is the calling card for every goal that you have in life. Here's the truth. People don't take you seriously when you look messy and you're out of shape and you can't even lift a 20-pound dumbbell. Thank you for joining me today on Precision Cycle. My name is Enrique. Thank you for joining me for Narcissism Nation. This is Enrique, elevate.epo. Let's open it up. 74% of U.S. adults are overweight or obese. That is 3 in 4 Americans. Over 40% of them are medically obese. From those 74%, we have 40% of those, nearly half, medically obese, right? Our president probably being amongst that statistic. Only 23 to 28% meet basic movement guidelines. A quarter of our population getting the types of movement required daily. Only 6 to 10% really train 5+ days a week with intensity. Me being amongst that 10%. I go 7 days a week, try to get some movement in, 1 hour a day. That is for me the time that I take to recalibrate myself, put myself under tension, good eustress, so that we're growing, we're building, and we're offloading a lot of our anxiety into positive movement. We have to understand that this isn't a food problem alone. It's discipline collapsed. We've become a nation where we don't appreciate discipline anymore, and we'd rather sit back and enjoy our McDonald's with our Coca-Colas and smoke our cigarettes and do all the other things like Netflix that are going to disassociate us negatively and waste our time. Okay, this is a spiritual rot wearing double X hoodies. And when we start electing people like Fetterman to the Senate, and he's got a waist circumference that is nearly double his shoulders, that's a major concern. And he has a stroke, and we sit here and we wonder why he can't show up to work and vote. It's because the guy's literally going to drop dead soon. He's so out of shape. And we started to look at that from the perspectives of the giant craze of the GLP-1s, right? The Ozempics, the Wegovys, the Manjaros, all these things that have come into the market in the past few years and people have learned to abuse. And I remember when I was working at residential, we had a client who actually came in there and started her treatment by pounding 12 shots of Ozempic and essentially just trying to crap her way into weight loss. We look at how 12 to 13% of U.S. adults have ever used GLP-1s. 6% are currently using them. As of 2024 last year, 2 to 4% of Americans were using GLP-1s for weight loss. Some of them for diabetes, but primarily their doctors were prescribing it for weight loss. Roughly 50 to 75% of GLP-1 users stop within a year. Why? Often the side effects or the cost. When we put that in perspective to exercise, 23 to 28% of U.S. adults meet both aerobic and strength training guidelines. Very few numbers. Around 47% of adults meet aerobic guidelines alone. Only 24% meet both aerobic and strength recommendations. If we look at older data from Penn State University, 2 hours of fitness activity per week is the average for most Americans. A lot of that is walking around Costco or Walmart for 2 hours. That's about as much aerobic exercise as most people get these days. So if we start to look at the numbers, America is overweight by design, right? 3/4 are fat, only 25% are moving. And 1 in 10 will try pharmaceutical quick fixes. This is how desperate we've gotten in a nation where we've essentially just created as much value out of consuming the worst things for yourself that are going to give you high blood pressure, sugar contents and insulin spikes, lead to more diabetes, the heart disease, and to what our president is looking like, some serious edema, which will most likely lead to kidney failure and possibly strokes. And we shift that over to wanting to delude ourselves that by wearing these fitness trackers and these fancy smartphones, we're actually doing something for our health. The reality is that 25% of US adults wear fitness trackers. Only 6 to 7% of them actually use them to track and train consistently, which means that over 50 million Americans wear trackers but don't train. They're essentially just wearing it as a status symbol, as some kind of a fashion accessory, some type of signal to someone else that perhaps they want to project the idea that they're working out, but ultimately they're not. They're just wearing it as cosplay. People put the watch on and think that's enough to track simple movement from the couch to the refrigerator. These aren't training tools, right? They've become digital participation trophies. This is what these watches are. Signals of intent without actually any real suffering behind them. And this is what the market relies on, is to sell these devices, very fancy supercomputers that you can wear on your wrist and do amazing things, but sell them to people who are going to wear them like the Lululemon yoga pants and never actually do any yoga. They're just going to wear them as status symbols, and that's about it. They're not interested in putting in the actual work and discipline that comes with the true ownership experience. And if we get back to Trump, this is part of the overall delusion that Americans live with. Trump claims he's 6'3", 215 pounds. That's from his most recent or semi-recent physical. If that was true and accurate, like I mentioned in the intro, he would be Lamar Jackson, right? He would be an NFL MVP with that level of body. And there's certainly a big difference between the way Lamar Jackson carries his 15 and the way the president supposedly carries his 215. If I know anything about obesity, I would venture to say that President Trump is probably more around 310 to 320 pounds. The picture that we had in the open proves the fact that a man that big, carrying that much weight, and having ankles that wide and swollen is probably retaining a very large amount of water. A lot of it has to do with the fact that all he eats is fast food and he never works out. He goes to the golf course and he'll swing the golf course clubs here and there, but get back in a cart and get driven around. And that's not really exercise. That's just leisure time. That's someone going out there, and it's akin to bowling in many ways because you're not necessarily putting in the type of dedicated exercise and work that you would have to build actual muscle. And this is what we see when we see a picture of President Trump, is a very fat man with no muscle underneath. He's just a big walking sack of adipose tissue, which is outrageous when you think about it from an American political perspective, because we're displaying most likely one of the worst visuals that you could put out there for someone in a position of leadership. You're putting out the visual of somebody who doesn't care about his body, who doesn't care about what they put in their body, who is possibly one of the most obese presidents of modern time, a symbol for something that you should not strive for. He's a corrupt, bankrupt human being. That internal bankruptcy lives on his body as well. You see the cankle swelling, right? The poor gait, the anterior collapse, the metabolic strain that he's under. You're seeing all the signs of someone struggling with morbid obesity. He may not say it, and it might sit there and try to dismiss it and try to say that he's a quote machine. But the reality, he is an obese old man who is days away from having significant issues, because you can't maintain this level of corpulence coupled with the obesity and adipose tissue he has attached to his body. So you can lie on your mugshot all you want about what you weigh, but your ankles never lie, right? That's not 215. That's America, bloated, delusional, and running from the scale. That's what that picture illustrates. And so we need to talk to what causes a lot of this, right? It's the time myth. It's the idea that people can lie to themselves that they don't have the time to put in an effort to go to the gym and invest in themselves, right? We have 168 hours in a week. You subtract 40 for work if you work, 40 for sleep, that's 88 hours left. And let's be real, most people don't sleep 8 hours a night, but we're going to be generous here and say that you do. And we're going to say 40 hours of sleep. Most Americans spend those 80 hours scrolling, binge eating, blaming their therapists for all their shortcomings, right? but never really actually getting to movement, never actually getting out to the gym, putting in that hour in the gym and moving, lifting weights and being productive. They don't put the time into walking and brisk walks in our local parks or on our streets, ride a bicycle, whatever you need to do. Most people are sitting at home Netflixing and chilling, although the chilling part is also not necessarily happening a lot because we're seeing the numbers that most people aren't having intimate relationships on that level anymore. And the thing is, it's not that you're too busy to move. This is the reality. You're just disoriented and you're disordered. That's really the brunt of it. Narcissism has got you in its clutches, and your body keeps the receipt to your own health, right? The body positivity movement has really done a lot throughout the years to create this sense that people that go to the gym and invest time in themselves are evil people, that they look down on people who are overweight. And even right now, I might sound like somebody who's looking down at people who are overweight. But the reality is that I used to be overweight. I used to be 310 pounds. I didn't really put a lot of value into it. And then I decided, you know what, that's not going to be it for me. And what did I do? I implemented precision cycle frameworks so that I got to the point where now I can just wake up, go to the gym, and do 405-pound squats because it's a Monday morning. This is the level of dedication and hard work and repetition and discipline that I have put into my own regime. I'm not saying I'm the most ripped person ever. I'm not saying that I'm going to take my shirt off and show this killer body and definitely not be that guy at 49 years old, but I am going to be the person that can run for an hour, 60 minutes, 5.5, 6 miles. I am the type of person that can bench press his body weight. I can deadlift a human being. So it's not as if I'm someone who just sits here and has no muscle and has no ability and doesn't put in the work. I'm someone that does it on a daily basis. That puts me in the top 10% of people who exercise and get the work that they need. And my ability to talk on the issues is buffeted by the fact that I'm actually walking the walk and talking the talk. Something that the president obviously doesn't do, something that JD Vance obviously doesn't do. If you looked at the video of him running at Disneyland, this is something that a lot of Americans, close to 3 in 4 Americans, don't do, because a lot of them are just sitting around and then eating Tostitos, ordering pizza, stuffing their faces, or paying Netflix to entertain them and disassociate. And this leads to the entire movement of how people have come to vilify people who go and value themselves and exercise. Fit bodies reflect their shame, and that's why the body positivity movement ultimately became a thing and then quietly went away when people started to abuse Ozempic. And when Lizzo went out and lost all the weight, that kind of killed the body positivity movement, because what it's saying is all of that was fake, all of that was false, all of that was us trying to traffic our dysfunctions and disorders in real time and not feel the shame publicly of being fat, as opposed to really celebrating the people that go put in the work daily to better themselves and to be fit. It's not a narcissistic thing for me. I put in the work daily to be fit for my family, for my kids, so that they can enjoy the best version of me, not so that I can be beach body ready, although that's a great side effect. Not so that I'm the most sexiest person when I take my shirt off in the bedroom, because that's ultimately also a good side effect. But I do it because I want to be around to enjoy the family that I've worked hard to raise. I want to be around to enjoy the things that I've worked hard to obtain. And I don't want to go around and pumping my body full of poisons that are going to limit my ability to really express myself in the best, most effective and efficient way possible. And this is the thing that people who work out, why people look at them as being narcissists themselves, right? Because it mirrors their own shame. Because they think that people that go and put in the work are better than them. In many ways they are, because they're showing a certain level of discipline. If we look at the factuals, people who are fit and disciplined ultimately get ahead more. That is a fact. That is just the way the world works, right? When you walk in and you are obese, you are already telling someone that you don't have the discipline to do the work that is being put upon you. You don't have the discipline to care enough in yourself to present that best version of yourself. And so that's led to this narcissistic nation's inverted values, right, where discipline equals toxicity now. And obesity means that you're brave. And if we look at just how demented that way of thinking is, there's a reason why we're so confused as a society. There's a reason why things that were true when we were growing up have now become these tropes for people to latch onto and claim that there's some kind of privilege to going out and exercising. There's no privilege to opening up the door and going for a run. That's just someone projecting their shame onto people who give a shit about the things they do and who are willing to bet on themselves in a way that makes them feel more positive and comfortable. I can tell you right now firsthand, back when I was 310 pounds, I was not a happy person and I was depressed. Cut to, I'm now 220 pounds on a good day, can bench press my weight, can deadlift as much as I can. But it's funny how that actually cured my depression. It's funny how that actually cured my anxiety, made me someone that didn't have to utilize all the other drugs that the psychiatrists were trying to get me on for my depression, rather the natural dopamine and serotonin in my head by contracting my muscles and working myself up into a sweat enough times. I got the joy and the high off of that, as opposed to the stabilization that Lexapro could have gave me, or Xanax, or some other type of pharmaceutical that would only get me more entrenched in my disorder. And that's the thing about fit people, is they walk in a room and they remind that 74% that don't work out and are obese that suffering is optional. That's why they hate people who work out at the end of the day. It's all classic projection. It's all just narcissistic manipulation and projection of shame, intolerance. And I don't want to say that this has been an entire conversation about trying to shame people who are overweight. Being overweight is something that is very difficult because it really does affect a lot of metabolic activities in your body, which makes it difficult to sustain. But at the same time, there is nothing stopping you from going to the gym and losing those 20 pounds that are bothering you, keeping you from wearing your best shirt or your favorite pair of jeans. Nothing stopping you from joining a gym and doing the hard work, because again, close to 80 hours a week we have free. What are you doing with those 80 hours? You're online rage baiting. You're online arguing with bots. You're online playing video games. You're lying on the couch watching TV. You're trying to raise kids by disassociating them into iPads and iPhones, and you yourself sit there and sleep the entire time you're home because you say you just spent a full day at work sitting on a chair just reading the numbers on a page because we're not working the trades anymore. This is what people are doing. And so what are you doing with those 80 hours? This is the place where we have to get back to your own narcissism and shame projection, honoring body positivity. It's about being functional and being reasonable human beings to understand that if you're prioritizing Netflix, if you're prioritizing doom scrolling, if you're prioritizing just laying in bed and sleeping all day, then that's narcissism at work. That is the collapse of the American system. And that's why people like President Trump end up in power, because all the worst parts of us are being mirrored back. And this is why he's so popular. If you take a cross section of his voters, you're going to see that 3 out of 4 are going to be severely overweight, out of shape, and they are a perfect match for what you saw displayed, just complete non-athletic, non-masculine peakness. That's what a lot of people and a lot of his voters look for and are essentially identifying with. Body positivity is no longer about hating yourself. It's about hating anyone who disciplines themselves. That's really what we've gotten to, right? When you say that, no, it's not okay to just lean 100% into your dysfunction and eat as much as you want, 4,000 calories at times, and be double the size. That's not being mean or not being body positive. What you're essentially saying is, let's look at reality here. Let's not use the people who have created their social identity on being corpulent to the extent where they are functionally useless, and then have the therapeutic scapegoats when they don't want to engage in changing their own life. This isn't a thing about being fat or being unmotivated. It's an indictment of how undisciplined Americans have become. In the same way that you can read all those numbers, you should read it as 3 in 4 Americans are undisciplined. 3 in 4 Americans have very little value to contribute to this world, to this nation, because we're going to end up having 3 out of 4 people in those foxholes unable to actually get out of them. Narcissism began as one nation under God looking to take as much and colonize as much from this new land, eat and consume and become so insulated into ourselves that even our bodies now are the receipt for that narcissism. When you are overweight and obese, it's a correlate there. You are a narcissist because all you're thinking about is yourself. And you're leaning into the worst parts of narcissism when you wear it on your body. Because look, we're getting to a place where we've utilized our oral fixations to justify our stress dissociation. Sugar, carbs, DoorDash, those are the new opiates in 2025. COVID lockdowns didn't create this. They revealed just how broken people were. America has engineered a population of sympathetic nervous system override with zero parasympathetic regulation, medicated by hyperpalatable food, dopamine technology, and sedentary pacification. And people wonder why they can't get dates, why they're so lonely these days. They have completely bought into the American myth, which is that your trauma is worth killing yourself over. Obesity is not a healthcare crisis. It's the shadow of a national trauma. And it's the receipt for a narcissistic nation that is committed to capitalism and all its worst exploitations. So if you want to rebel against that, join the fit body movement and become someone who is truly a cultural rebellion warrior here. Join Precision Cycle, because aside from the mental health components, we structure frameworks that get you motivated and disciplined enough to get yourself a routine, to get yourself in the gym, to get yourself going in a positive direction so that you are filling your body with repetitions of weight, of discipline, of all the things that are going to give you those natural highs, which will make you the most powerful lethal weapon in the room. There's a reason you're not getting that promotion. It's because you're sloppy and you wear the fact that you can't be trusted to have it. There's a reason you can't get dates. It's because you look big, nobody wants to look at you that big, and you're not attractive in that way to people. But if you want to actually get better, you don't go to Weight Watchers, you don't go to Ozempic, you go to Precision Cycle, because what we're doing here is linking the physical with the emotional and cutting through the garbage of both of those and getting you straightened out in a way that aligns you with your goals. You want to be beach body ready? You need to do it from both a mental and a physical perspective. Precision Cycle gets you there. By 2026, you can not only be on your way to a new body, you can be on your way to a new life. The reality is that our society is image-based. Go on Instagram, go on TikTok, go on any of the social media sites. That is all narcissism, and a lot of that is attractive narcissism, just visual narcissism. Perception is the physical body that is sitting across from them. So I challenge you, contact me, Enrique at elevateepo.com, Precision Cycle TV on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Narcissism Nation on YouTube. Contact me. I'll get you your first free consultation and we'll go from there. Because the reality is you don't have to be obese. You don't have to be fat. You don't have to be that person that wishes they were that guy who can lift 300 pounds and be the best embodiment of discipline. You can become that person with some simple recalibration that our 7 dimensions are able to identify and correct. Precision Cycle helps you realign to wellness in a very positive and grounded method. I challenge you to contact me because the last thing you want to do is to end up like Trump and have those cankles. Believe me, you don't want that. Thank you very much for your time. My name's Enrique, and I hope to hear from you soon.